Hallo und herzlich willkommen im Franchise-Universum Podcast hier auf der Franchiseexpo. Und zwar bin ich mit Therese und Gary hier und die Vorstellung machen wir gleich. Und sie kommen aus den USA, erzählen uns ein paar Impulse, wie es in den USA ist, gerade was Wachstum und Multi-Unit angeht. Und ich freue mich sehr, dass sie da sind und wir wechseln zu Englisch. We switch to English now. I'm very happy, Therese and Gary, that you are here, guest in my podcast. I wanted to ask you to introduce yourself, to get to know what you are doing and why you are the perfect people to talk to, getting big in our business, big multi-units, multi-brand businesses, because you are very deep into that subject. Hallo und willkommen zu einer neuen Episode im Franchise-Universum Podcast für euch in den Systemzentralen. Mein Name ist Steffen Kessler und ich helfe euch, die passenden Menschen zu finden und von euch zu überzeugen, um sie dann zu erfolgreichen und, das ist mir wichtig, zufriedenen Franchise-Partnern zu machen. In meinen Worten heißt das, indem wir unser Glück mit anderen teilen. Viel Spaß mit dem kommenden Impuls. Therese, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. Therese Thilgen is my name. I am the co-founder and CEO of Franchise Update Media. We've been in business well over 35 years now. And when you've been in business that long, you learn a thing or two along the way. We have a number of different products and services that we offer the franchise community. We serve franchisors. That's where we started. That's our foundation. And we serve multi-unit franchisees as well. And individuals looking for franchises or that want to grow as multi-unit franchisees. And we do that through our conferences nationwide. We do that through our magazines. And we do that through a very robust website called franchising.com.
Hi, I'm Gary Gardner, and I'm chairman and co-founder of Franchise Update. And actually, we had several domains in the beginning when the internet was just becoming popular and we were all discovering it. The important thing is, no matter what the domain name is you have to have the proper content for your audience to attract and then serve them. So, we work really hard as a publishing company to make sure that we produce relevant content and educational information for franchisors, for multi-unit franchisees, and for first-time buyers to some extent as well.
What I wanted to ask you is, if we look to the US, people talking about multi-franchisees or even multi-brand franchising, it's not only like at our place, like 4, 5, maybe 10 units. They run like 300, 400 units. So in the US, you can think even bigger than we are used to it in our small little German country. Kind of inspiration, what can you give to German franchisors as kind of mindset to think big?
Well, first and foremost, franchisors need to ensure that their franchisees are profitable. That is the name of the game. And if they are profitable, I guess the ultimate reason why franchisees grow into multi-unit and multi-brand is because their entrepreneurial spirit won't keep them with just one unit. They want to go, they want to grow, they want to grow their people, they want to grow their business, they want to grow their profitability. And we identified this trend about 24 years ago. We started noticing that there were restaurant franchisees, that's really where it started, that had maybe, 5 or 10 units. And as we were interviewing them, learning more about them, one of the things we learned is that there was more opportunity to create profitability and employment opportunities through growth. And then there was the big recession of what year, Gary?
The high-tech, the dot-com.
That when the dot-com crash happened, I think that was a pivotal point in the growth of multi-unit franchisees. And the reason is you had a lot of white-collar individuals that put their trust in corporate America and then lost their trust because they were just cut loose and let go. However, a lot of them had packages, financial packages, when they left. And many decided, I want to take charge of my future. I want to run my future, and I'm going to do it on my own terms. And so franchising went through explosive growth at that time. And these folks, as white-collar individuals, knew marketing. They knew management. They knew financial statements. They knew it all. So one unit wasn't satisfying. They're like, let's just go and let's go big. And that is really that's when we started our conference, our multi-unit franchising conference, noticing this trend.
Not long ago, Gary, I had a podcast episode. We talked about the lock-in effect. If a franchisee, a multi-unit franchisee gets this big, that he gets a lot of power, even on the franchisor. The franchisor is not free to decide anything anymore because he fears the franchisee might say, okay, no, I'm not going to follow you that way. And he has too much power because he has the half of the units or maybe even a quarter of the units. Do you know this kind of problems in the US and how do you handle it?
So that's a really good question, Stefan. And I would encourage the franchisors not to be fearful of that, but to embrace it and to work with their franchisees because their franchisees are on the front line. They're the ones out there in operations, and many times the franchisees will have, good suggestions on operational or product innovations. And, when we talk about control, of course, your contractual, your contracts have to be proper and, set up with, a good attorney that can write a proper contract. But you can also embrace, that part of the business cycle and what's going on there and get your franchisees involved because they are your children, really.
Well, what I hear is like being transparent communication and showing even the problems we have and trying to solve them together. That's kind of what I thought to understand.
That is so true. And that is how successful franchisors become more successful, by listening. In the United States, I'm not sure how it is in Europe or Germany for that matter, but in the United States, most franchisors have franchisee advisory councils. And at times they have them in different categories. For example, they might have a franchisee advisory council for marketing, how they market locally, et cetera, or nationally. And so these are very common. I frankly do not know a franchisor in the U.S. that does not have a franchisee advisory council. And some have franchisee associations that franchisees have started when they felt like the franchisor wasn't listening. And the bottom line is those have been very effective too. So as Gary mentioned, it's really about communication and franchisee profitability, franchisees being paid attention to, because then, the world's your oyster. You can just keep growing with these successful franchisees. And wouldn't you say, Gary, today that smart, and I use this word lightly, smart franchisors are not threatened by franchisees that become larger than them with their corporate stores because of the communication and, the continued engagement they have with one another. It used to, 20 years ago, absolutely, they were threatened. Yeah. But there's been an evolution. Okay.
From my point of view, they are not threatened as well because they have different customers. Talking about customer, the customer of the franchisor is the franchisee. Yes. And the customer of the franchisee is the final customer who eats the pizza or whatever it is. So they can't be threatened in a theoretical way, right, seeing it, because they have different business models. Right. And it would be great if the franchisee is kind of a the hero of the story.
If your franchisees are not successful, then your franchise is not going to be successful.
Talking about communication, Therese, I know that you are, for a long while, you are looking to the female way of running a franchise system. The first question would be the communication of female franchisees or even franchisors. Is it different to the male part of it? Do they communicate in a different way? Do they run their business in a different way?
Well, I think we have learned over time that women tend to have more empathy, therefore are really good managers. And the listening skills tend to be greater than those of their male counterparts. And that is anything you read in the U.S., studies that have been done, et cetera, about women excelling in business. Women are off the charts in comparison. Of course, there's been an evolution. 20 years ago, the franchise industry was very male-dominated. And when Gary and I started in business, it was very, very male-dominated. What is really exciting to see today is the number of women that are getting into business as franchisees, but who are also growing through franchisor organizations and running them. And I would say, as a woman, that the opportunities at the corporate level, at the franchisor level, are really strong, especially if it's a younger franchisor, because you can pave your way and really make a difference and be counted and grow through that organization. Not to say you couldn't do it at a larger organization, but I think that's where women really, got a foothold in franchising.
Is there a difference of thinking big, talking about multi-unit, multi-brand? Would you say there's a difference the way male franchisees think big of growing and female franchisees think big of growing?
That's a great question. I know a number of women that are some of the largest franchisees in the United States, okay? So that's really coming, down to the individual. But it is, through many, many studies, proven that women are more risk adverse. Okay, so there's more education and learning that is taking place. And when Gary and I started the company, I was in a corporate environment. He had been too, but he always knew he wanted to be in business, for himself. I was more reluctant, to be quite honest. But once you get in it, there's no going back. You just want to keep going.
Gary, I wanted to ask you about multi-brand franchising. Over here, I would say my impression is the franchisors, they feel kind of threatened. We talked about the feeling of threatening before. They feel threatened of franchisees who suddenly want to start a second brand franchise business. I don't know how well the development was in the US, because from my point of view in the US, it's quite normal to not only to run a Pizza Hut or whatever, Domino's, to run several brands, and nobody is in fear of it.
Yeah, Stefan, that's a good point, and it absolutely does exist and did exist a lot more, 10 to 12 years ago. We produce a large multi-unit franchising conference in the United States where the content attracts multi-unit operators that are learning, there to learn how to run their businesses better, but to also look for additional brands. And we had many franchisors in the beginning not bring their franchisees because they were afraid that they would buy other franchise brands and get distracted and focus on those and not focus on their original brands. But what we've discovered is it's quite the opposite. They may be interested in another brand, but they also get energized to expand their own original brands. So I would encourage franchisors not to do that, not to be fearful of the franchisee being distracted, because if the franchisee is also looking for another brand, it means they have a large appetite. it means they want to grow.
And you're not going to stop them.
Yes, you won't stop them anyway, so help.
You might lose them if you say no.
Oh, and it happens.
Yeah, help them and encourage them, because if they buy another brand, they'll end up expanding more of the original brand too. And again, it comes down to me. I remember when we first started coming to Europe and we were talking at different conferences about multi-unit franchising. One of the objections that was continuously thrown out is that, how can we? It's so hard. It looks so hard to expand. How can I be in Italy and expand in Germany or any of the other countries because of the cultural barriers or a language barrier? And I said, well, yeah, there are challenges, but it all depends on your appetite. It's not for everybody. But if you have the appetite, you'll find the way to overcome the obstacles and to get it done.
All right. Therese, Jerry, thank you very much for joining this little podcast. It was a great pleasure hosting you over here and talking about growing big from the US point of view. Because I think we can look over there and try to get a feeling, even though our country is kind of the size of, I don't know, maybe Florida or something, right. and you are 50 times bigger. So I think we won't get there that one franchisee only in Germany would open 300 or 400 units. But the thinking about it, and we have some neighbor countries as well we might try. So thank you very much for giving us a little inspiration in that direction.
Thank you. It's been really a pleasure.
And have a good time in Germany.
So much. Thank you, Stefan.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Das war's für heute von mir hier im Franchise-Universum Podcast. Ich freue mich, wenn für euch ein passender Impuls dabei war. Und wenn ja, dann leitet ihn gerne an eure Kollegen innerhalb der Systemzentrale weiter. Und ganz besonders empfehlt sehr gerne diesen Podcast an eure befreundeten Franchisegeber und Franchise-Manager, denn es ist natürlich noch lang nicht jeder in der Podcast-Welt angekommen. Und sehr gerne hinterlasst mir eine nette Bewertung auf iTunes. Das hilft mir, diesen kleinen Nischen-Podcast für die Franchise-Wirtschaft leichter auffindbar zu machen. Ich wünsche euch eine gute Zeit, teilt euer Glück, euer Wissen, euren Erfolg mit euren Franchise-Partnern. In diesem Sinne macht es gut, bis zur nächsten Episode. Ciao.